Welcome to the Dr. Carolyn Coker Ross Show, awakening your full potential and expanding your understanding of how to live fully and joyfully by making conscious choices that promote and maintain vitality in all areas of your life. Now here's your host, Dr. Carolyn Coker Ross. Please be sure to listen to this episode in an environment that is safe. Do not listen to this recording while driving a car or operating any kind of machinery.
Welcome to The Vital Life. I'm Dr. Carolyn Coker Ross, your host, and today we're going to be talking about another aspect of creating vitality, and that's vitality with your money. My guest today is Harv Eker. He's an internationally acclaimed speaker, the original founder of Peak Potentials Training, and a best-selling author. He grew up in Toronto but spent most of his adult years in the United States. After developing one of the first retail fitness stores in North America, he grew the business to 10 stores and became a millionaire. In less than 2 years, however, the money was gone. It was at this point that Eker began developing his theories about an individual's mental and emotional relationship with money. He realized that his own inner money thermostat was set for a specific amount of financial success and that everyone has a similar personalized financial set point. He's the author of Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, Mastering the Inner Game of Wealth. Welcome to the show, Harv.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
So I loved your book. It's very interesting, and I when I read your bio, I also learned that your parents were European immigrants who came to Canada with only $30 to their name. And I wondered what kind of messages you got growing up about money.
Not good ones. Well, the messages, as you know, and you talk about, I'm sure, all the time on your show, are messages. They're not good or they're not bad. They're just messages. And so regardless, the message I got was that money was scarce. Not because they came from Europe, literally during the war, it was if you had money, you were able to get out, and if you didn't have money, you weren't. And so literally, what I was taught was subconsciously was that money means survival. It doesn't mean joy. It doesn't mean freedom. It means if you have it, you live, and if you don't have it, you die. And so literally, it's easy to look back on it now and understand that. But in those days, I didn't understand that. All I knew was I needed to become a millionaire. I needed to become rich in order to continue living. It was a matter of survival, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So in your book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, you talk about the differences in the thought processes of the rich versus those who are poor. How did you learn about this?
Well, because I was poor for a long time, because as much as there was a lot, of course, I've been teaching now for 25 years, but, prior to that, now I realize there's a lot of people who really don't want to be rich. If you said to them, is that one of your main focuses in life, to be rich? They go, no, it's not. My main focus in life is to be happy. My main focus in life is to have, be with my family, or my main focus is to relax and just enjoy, enjoy my food and my wine, whatever. So they don't have a commitment to being wealthy. And in fact, unfortunately, most people believe that if you have a goal of being rich, then you have a little something wrong with you. Like you're missing something else. You're missing the balance in your life. That's the only thing that's important to you. You're kind of crass. And what people don't realize, Carolyn, is that, we've got so many negative messages about money now, especially today, by the way, which I'm not happy about, that they don't realize you can have both. You can be rich and kind, rich and generous, rich and loving, rich and balanced, rich and healthy, rich and have a wonderful family life. You can be a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person who is also doing extremely well financially. And I think that's one of the biggest messages that I need to get across to people, is that they've got this either-or mentality, and it's just, like, what's more important, your arm or your leg? Like, maybe they're both important in the areas in which they work, and that's it. You don't want to pick things up with your leg, and you don't want to be walking on your arms, okay? So they're just both important in what they do. And, you and I did not make up the rules around money. We just have to abide by them. We didn't make up the rules that say, money's really important in certain aspects of life. But, that's the way it is. And so because it is the way it is, we just have to deal with that. And why not be successful in the area of finances?
Well, let me ask you this. Do you believe, though, that anyone could be a millionaire?
Well, I think that if you say the word anyone in the world, I would say that might be a challenge. If you say anyone in North America and Europe and Australia and Singapore and places that we teach, I'd say absolutely, not a question. If you're going to talk about the world, then some environmental issues come into play. I mean, if you're talking about in the middle of Nairobi or Uganda where they barely in Sudan where they're barely able to live.
Yeah,
it's a lot harder to do that. But in a free country where you have everything at your fingertips, if you're willing to have a good idea, work hard at it, learn how to do things right, yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And you're saying then, because in your book you talk about that what keeps us from being millionaires are these beliefs or messages from the past.
Well, as you know, and you teach all the time yourself, is that those messages, the psychological programming, let's call it, that we got early on, either propel us or repel us from everything. It's not just money. We talk about this thing called your money blueprint. In other words, what's your programming, your conditioning set like in the area of money when you were growing up? And how did you learn it? So we learned it, as you know, through verbal conditioning, modeling, parents and teachers and things, and specific incidents that occurred with us. And so, are those things important when it comes to money? Well, are they important when it comes to your relationship? Are they important when it comes to your fitness and your health? Of course, the early childhood programming that you received, messages received when you were young, as you always talk about, is exactly what goes into your mind files as the way to do something and the result to have with something. And that stays there until those files are completely either deleted or changed or revised in some way. Our mind is just like, it's a computer. So when you program a computer to do something, it does it until you reprogram it. It doesn't just change in the middle.
I guess what I'm asking you really is how hard is it once you become aware of these beliefs? Because, I work with people to change their behaviors all the time and to change their beliefs and their programming. And it seems like it can be very difficult for people to make that shift. With weight management, for example, somebody may know what to eat. They may know that, they had certain programming as they were younger, and yet only a certain percentage are able to really make that change. What's the difference between those that you work with who are able to become millionaires, if that's what they want, or just increase their financial vitality, and those that don't?
I wish I had the pure answer to that. I probably have over 1 million students in 105 different countries around the world. If I could just put my finger on it, it would be a lot easier for everyone. But I would say one of the biggest differences, Carolyn, really is, and I kind of have to put it this way, is I'm going to put it is the got to factor. The got to factor. When people say, well, when will someone change? And I think, as you know, because of your position also, it's when they have to. It's when there's no more choices. It's when they're in enough pain. It's when their motivation is strong enough. Because if it's not, then the habits will win out. We both teach that. The habits are so strong, those dendrites are so strong that it's very, very difficult to just go, well, it would be nice to. Carolyn, as you talked about earlier, I used to be in the fitness business. I had one of the first retail fitness stores in the world. And every day people would come in and they'd say, I want to lose some weight. I want to buy this bike or this rowing machine. I go, well, are you going to use it? Oh, yeah, of course. Well, do they use it? Well, you know how that works. Yeah. Use it for a clothes hanger. But people that did, right. That's what I really learned about teaching people, because the people who did use it, one thing I found about them, and I know it sounds a little hokey, but they always had a real specific, and word is specific reason for needing to lose weight or needing to be healthy. So the ones who came out of the hospital and the heart surgeon said to them, listen, you need to go get yourself a piece of equipment from this guy, and you need to use it every day, or you won't be here next year when I do my checkup with you. Mm-hmm. Those people use the equipment, okay? They are the people
That's
who,
right. Yeah.
the ones that would come in and go, I need to lose 20 pounds in the next 6 weeks. And I go, okay, well, that's nice. I've heard that 1,000 times. I go, no, you don't understand. I'm getting married in 6 weeks. My dress is picked out, and I don't come close to fitting into it. And I don't have a choice here. You know what? They would lose those 20 pounds. I guarantee it. So literally, the reason, the motivation people have for why to be rich, why to be financially successful, why it's important to them, makes all the difference in the world as to whether they will do what's necessary, both consciously and unconsciously, to do what it takes to create that reality.
So we have a couple minutes before the first break. What was your big motivator at the time when you had to become a millionaire and then you ended up losing it all? I think you said through bad investments and other reasons. What got you on the right track?
Wow, you really hit that right on the head, didn't you? Right? I try to be a very, open person because I think I'm like everybody else, and everyone's like me, and I'm not better or worse. It's just everyone's the same, and so my issues are the same as everybody else's, I find, and vice versa. For me, now looking back, what it was for me, my motivation was proving myself. You see, my parents, when I left school after first year of college, they were not happy with me. And of course, I wanted my parents' approval. And they were not just not happy with me, they were screaming at me. They said, you're going to be a bum. We don't, basically disowning you. You have to go back to school, which just wasn't for me. And so I made a decision right in that moment as they pinned me against the wall, screaming in my face, don't you leave school, or, you're never going to see you again, all that kind of stuff. I just, in my mind, just went to, okay, I'll show you. I will not be a bum. I'll be a millionaire before you can breathe again. And so literally for me, it was every waking hour was unconsciously about proving myself to show my parents that I wasn't a bum, I was a good person, and that I could make it without having to have been a lawyer or a doctor, and which is what they thought I'd said. So that was my motivation.
Yeah, that's a pretty good motivator. That's one I've had in my life before, too. I'll show you. My special guest today is Harv Eker. He is an internationally acclaimed speaker, the original founder of Peak Potentials Training, and the best-selling author of Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, Mastering the Inner Game of Wealth. Harv's world-famous Millionaire Mind intensive trainings have already touched over 1 million people, helping them move closer to their own goal of financial freedom. So before the break, we were just talking about motivators for success, what would actually get people to change their behaviors around money. And I just want to talk a little bit more about that. As you know, there are, just like weight books, there are tons of books about money. One of the notable recent ones is the whole Rich Dad, Poor Dad series. And I just wondered, though, is it the book that's different? Is your book just very different from those books? Or is there something else that you are doing with people that helps them to change?
That is a great question. I would like to say that this is really, really important that you touched on this because, like in anything else, there's an inner game and an outer game. And the difference in Secrets of the Millionaire Mind is the mind part of it. Okay, it's not the real estate part of it. It's not the stock part of it. It's not the financial, bonds and markets and all that, and business. It's not a business or a financial book as per se. It's a mind book. Mm-hmm. And what we basically say is your inner world creates your outer world, as within, so without. So literally, what happens is that, everyone's got what we call a money blueprint, and that's how we were programmed in our mind files to think about money when we were young and growing up. And again, that comes from your verbal conditioning, modeling, and specific incidents. Now, if you have these ways of thinking which create your beliefs, which create your thoughts, lead to your feelings, which lead to your actions, which lead to your results. So basically, your results come from your original thoughts, which come from your original programming. So what we do a little bit differently, and I say a lot differently, is the book is about money. The book is about you. The course isn't about money. The course is about you mostly. And so literally, we work with the mind, we work with your thinking process. And what we're able to do in this extraordinary program, and I have to say that even though it's I like to be humble about it, but we're the only ones in the world that do this, is we actually go in, and during 3 days we actually can recondition, literally recondition, that's the process, the programming in one's mind, the dendrites, neurological pathways, recondition them for much, much more supportive thought processes, natural thought process towards both success and happiness. And that's the biggest difference in the world, because literally, as you know, Carolyn, the roots create the fruits. The result that everybody wants is created from the inner world. Your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, that all leads to your physical reality. And so
now you're not talking about just imagining yourself rich, because that's another approach.
That's very surface oriented, and that's a nice way of doing it. But that's not going to do it. You know, if you were to say, how does someone change? Like, what would someone need to do to change a belief about something? Well, first of all, that would be a good question, wouldn't it? Can someone really change their beliefs? That's a really good question, right? And the answer is, well, let's ask you. Let's ask everyone who's listening. Let's suppose, for example, that John believes that Bob is a good friend of his. You know, very nice to him. He's a good friend. He can count on him. And so John believes Bob's a good friend. That's a belief. Wonderful. And then so he mentions that to Sue. And Sue says, what, Bob's your friend? I don't. You should hear what Bob says about you behind your back. He's not a friend of yours at all. And you go, well, no, that can't be. Bob's a good friend. And then he talks to Alice. And Alice says, oh, no, I've heard Bob talk about you. And, he I would think he's your enemy, not your friend at all. And then you find out all this new information about Bob. Now, do you still think Bob's your good friend? No, you don't believe that at all anymore, because you have new information. You've examined the old stuff. You have new information to make a new decision with. Well, that's part of the reconditioning process, to be able to install new information that is valid today, not 20, 30, 50 years ago, that other people installed in you, that you want to install in yourself today based on your reality today and what is real today. And so one of the processes is giving people, examining how they learn what they learn. So first of all, what are your beliefs? What are your thought processes around money and success and wealth and rich people? Eliciting those, examining each of those. Where did each of those come from? And then re-choosing today based on who you are and who you want to be as to whether that makes sense for you at all anymore or not. Because a lot of people, they just run on things. You ask them, when you elicit it, they go, you know what, this doesn't even make sense. I don't even know why I'm thinking this. They just do. And so,
but then there's the next part, which is the moment-to-moment decisions that we all make. So I'll just give you an example from my world of working with people with eating disorders and addictions. You know how the 12-step programs say a day at a time or a moment at a time, and that's really where the work happens. Is that the same for, it's like you're out to dinner and you have a choice. Do I eat a loaf of bread that's on the table, or do I eat a piece of bread? And, do you know what I'm saying? Is that what happens to?
About conscious decision making. And what we do a little bit differently is during those 3 days, we actually do a lot of unconscious work. So we actually do reprogramming right in the workshop itself. So what that means is that we would have already done that reprogramming for that person, let's say with the loaf of bread versus the slice of bread. That person would throw up if they looked at that loaf of bread. That would probably what would happen. When people do the work itself, in the event itself, that's why it's a live event. If I could do it all in a book, I would, but it's impossible to actually do the reprogramming of the dendrites. We have several processes, exercises, where we actually go in and we change those dendrites. That programming is changed right on site. Okay. And we do it through several different methods. They're fun and exciting, but they're very effective.
And that's the Millionaire Mind intensives?
Exactly, yeah. That's why it's so popular. So we'll have 5,000, 4,000 people in a room for 3 days, all over the world.
Wow. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm going to Italy next week and Spain the week after that, and 3,000 in one, 4,000 in another. We just came back from Munich, Germany, had 3,000 in the room. And literally, and everyone is changed. You can't help but be changed because you're going to look at things you never looked at in your life before, and you're going to go, well, this doesn't make sense. This is my mother's, not mine. Oh, my God, I've got that.
So you say, give me 5 minutes and I can predict your financial future for the rest of your life. How?
Well, that's a great question, too. I say give me 5 minutes, and people go, wow, that's ridiculous. I go, yes, it is ridiculous because it doesn't take 5 minutes. It takes 5 seconds. Let me put it this way. Now that we've got the cat out of the bag, how do you predict someone's financial future? Easy. What was their financial past and what's their current financial situation? Why would it change? So if you said in your example, Carolyn said, you could say, give me 5 minutes and I can predict your eating outcome and your weight outcome for the rest of your life. How? Why? Just take a look at how you've been doing it so far. We're creatures of habit. Nothing's going to change unless you go in and change it, right? So, if someone has gained 3 pounds a year for the last 10 years, guess what? It's not going to change. Why would it? They're still eating the same thing and doing the same type of workout or not, and why it's not going to change until something you go in there and change it. So it's the same with money. What's your financial future? It's about the same as it is right now, okay? It's the same pattern you've had right now. Whether you're a spender, whether you're a saver, whether you're a money manager, whether you're rich, whether you're always broke, whether you spend more than you make, all that will be identical for the rest of your life until you actually go in and make the change on a reconditioned manner, and that's what very fortunately we're able to do for people.
Okay. So do you feel that the major reason so few people change their net worth is that they don't have the motivation to look at their beliefs, or is there something even deeper than that?
Well, it is their beliefs. It is their conditioning. That is your money blueprint will determine your money thermostat, let's call it. It's just like a normal thermostat. The thermostat determines the temperature in that room. If you open the windows and it's really cold in the room and you still have that thermostat set for 72, no matter what you do in that window, that thermostat's going to kick on and bring that temperature back to 72. If it's really hot outside and the temperature room gets to 77, no matter what you do, if the thermostat's set for 72, it's going to kick in and drive the temperature back down. It's exactly the same with what you call your money blueprint or your money thermostat. That inner money thermostat will determine your financial life. And what we do is we actually change the thermostat instead of trying to work on all the outside stuff that's just a result of it.
Yeah. So in your book, you talk about the difference between net worth and working income. And I think in some ways, being a doctor or a lawyer or someone who makes a comfortable income can actually make it harder for you to become a millionaire. Do you agree? Or
any personal service company is a challenge to become really rich, unless you're doing something on the investment side of it, which is something you're going to have that people have to recognize. See, a lot of people who work in the personal service industry, which is a doctor, lawyer, anything where you have to be there in order for the product or service to be performed, their feeling primarily is that they need to be the cog in the wheel because, that's what they like, it's what they've been trained to do, and that's what they know.
But there's also the golden handcuffs of having a comfortable level of income. You can buy a house. You can maybe put your kids through college. You're comfortable, so you're not as desperate or as pushed to change anything. And I think you mentioned that a little bit in your book, too.
Yeah, the comfort zone itself. That's what we just talked about as we opened the show. It was about the got to. And a lot of people who are comfortable, they don't have the got to, and so there's no, there's no result from that. And not everybody has to be rich. But I would like to just stay for a moment here as to people are saying, well, we're talking about money and riches and all that. Well, the New York Times called me a financial evangelist.
Oh, my.
And I'll take that as a blessing, because someone's got to stick up for us. Because there's a couple of things. First of all, why be rich? Well, can we just cover that really quickly? Number one, lifestyle. Most people would agree that your lifestyle, not just for yourself, but for your family and the people close to you, can be a little nicer if you have money than if you don't. But also, the next one is contribution. Carolyn, if you have quite a bit of money, then you have the wherewithal to help people who just will never have the opportunities that you do to not only forget about creating wealth, but to have a couple of decent meals in a week, And so the question is, again, we didn't make up the rules, and money buys a lot of good things. Especially when there's disasters that occur in the world, whether it's relief or whether it's medical aid or clothing or food or shelter, we didn't make up those rules. It takes money to handle all those things. And so if you have it, you can share it. And that's probably the biggest thing with our students that they want to do. One of the reasons they want to be rich is to be able to help other people in that way if at all possible. And then the third reason is for who you have to become in character and virtue and mindset and attitude and habit in order to be successful enough in any arena as to create wealth from that arena. Carolyn, wealth is a result. Everyone who's listening has to understand that. Money, success in money and wealth is a result. It's a result of being successful at something, okay, in a way that you can create the reward called money. Now, here's the thing. If you are going for a large amount of money, the dumbest thing to do in the world is try to make a lot of money. That doesn't even work, okay? What you have to do is try to be very successful in an arena and understand money enough and business enough to be able to reap the rewards of that success. So you have to be a bigger, better, stronger person to be successful enough in anything as to create wealth from that arena than to be unsuccessful. It's just
I think that's a really important distinction. I want to talk a little bit more about that when we come back from the break. So my guest today is Harv Eker. He's the author of Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. We're talking about financial vitality today with Harv Eker, who's the author of Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, a #1 New York Times bestseller. And he also offers 3-day intensives called the Millionaire Mind Intensive Trainings. So I just want to make sure we don't forget to give your website out if you want to let everybody know how they can find out more information about you, Harv.
Yeah, we do the program all over the world. Again, we probably maybe have about 20 different countries that we work with in, and they're large programs. They work amazingly well for people. And the best website to go to is www.millionairemindglobal.com. Millionairemindglobal.com. That will get you some information on where the programs are being held and a little bit about them, and then you can make a decision whether they're right for you. But I will say this, Carolyn, that I've taught this for over 25 years because that's the only thing that worked for me. I've taught business. I teach money. I teach a lot of elements around success. But there's, in my mind, still, no matter what, the roots create the fruits. And if you don't take care of this inner thing, if you don't take care of your blueprint, if you don't actually go in there and change the thermostat first, nothing else seems to work for people. So you ask, well, how about, if I learn this stock system? Well, the stock system won't help you if you don't have your mind files aren't in order. Okay,
that's the equivalence of my patients who are struggling with weight, just choosing another diet. Oh, well, what if this diet will be better for me? Oh, that one didn't work, so let me do another one. So it's the same.
Right. It's identical. We're talking about the same thing because in the same way you have a money blueprint, you have a weight blueprint, you have a happiness blueprint, you have a relationship blueprint, and the blueprint, all that is the programming you received in the past around that specific area that leads to your way of thinking, that leads to your actions, and those actions propel as habits, and those create your results. It's very, very simple, but as you say, not that easy to change. And so we have a way in the program of actually going in there and making the changes right there and then, changing that program and changing the files so that it's just much more natural to think in another way than the first way. And then people do that, and then they start acting differently, take different actions, and then they get different results. Here's a good example. You asked me about real estate before and Rich Dad, Poor Dad and all that. Yeah, I must have at least, and without exaggeration, I try to keep the numbers low, 5,000 people over the last few years that have come up to me and said, you changed my life. The course changed my life. I go, wow, that's great. Say, well, I'm a millionaire now. I go, well, that's great. And I go, how'd you do it? And they go, in real estate. I go, oh, well, we don't actually teach real estate. No, go, yeah, I understand you don't teach real estate, but you know what? I've been doing real estate for 20 years, and it hasn't worked for me. I did your program, and all of a sudden, everything's working. I don't understand it, but everything changed.
That's
you understand
amazing.
what I'm saying? Because you changed. It's not about what you knew about real estate or stocks before. It's about who you are. You are the root of your success. You are the root of your happiness. You are the root of anything else that occurs for you. If you don't, people say to me all the time, Carol, they go, "Hey, Harv, how do I be a success? How do I be a success?" If you want to be a success, you have to be a success. You know, there's a saying that says, fortunately or unfortunately, you take yourself with you wherever you go.
Yeah.
So, you know, so you have to be a success, and then you'll be successful in any arena that you touch.
Well, what you're talking about doesn't fit very well with the American ethic of, get rich quick or take the easy way out or find the magic pill. So do you see, I mean, as you travel around the world, is that something that comes up in other countries, or is it particularly Western?
That's a great question, too. I'll be in my, I'm not going to go with countries because the countries are they're all pretty similar. I always say, if you have a mind and you have a heart, you're the same as everybody else. Okay.
But you do talk about the influence of culture on our beliefs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I will say this: the younger the person is, the more they are thinking that it's going to be a get-rich-quick thing. That's my experience. And the reason for that is because they haven't had enough experience to find out that that's just not true for themselves, you know? And so when a person's a little bit older, middle-aged, and start to get a little bit older, they already know that it doesn't kind of work like that. And the reason it doesn't work quite like that, and by the way, I'm not a big fan of getting rich slowly either. I think there's a nice midpoint, and we teach a method in one of our other programs that says if you're going to be in a business of your own in any way, shape, or form, there's a sweet spot that says 3 to 5 years. That if you are willing to commit and focus on your success and your business and whatnot for 3 to 5 years, in the method that we teach, you should be able to cash out of there as, fairly wealthy. And so it does take 3 to 5 years. It doesn't take overnight, and if you're doing it 20 years, you're certainly not using the system that we're teaching. So literally it's taken me several times 3 to 5 years, a lot of our students 3 to 5 years. That's about the number. But I'll tell you right now, and I know it's a little off topic, but I want everybody to be clear about this. In order to do that, you cannot do that in a personal service company. It just doesn't work. So be right candid with everybody. If you're a massage therapist, 3 to 5 years isn't going to cut it. Even a doctor, you might be, but you have to invest outside. So how do you do that? And the answer is you'll probably have to start with your own business in any way, shape, or form. And secondly, it's got to be able to be leveraged so that you can provide value without you having to be there. Because you're going to have to earn a lot of money, Carolyn. As a reward, you're going to have to provide a lot of value. And when you're a doctor or an accountant or a lawyer or a massage therapist or a coach, your finances are based on your time and the amount of time that you personally put in. Now, there's only 24 hours in a day. And because of that limitation, if you have a limitation on your income, you have on your time, which you do, you have a limitation on your income. And limitations on income do not create wealth. And so you've got to, in addition to what you're doing, provide a value to people, a way to solve problems for people that doesn't take you to be there. Whether it's hiring other people, whether it's working with other people, whether it's working with systems, whether it's working with products, whatever it is, if you're stuck when it's just you yourself, you're limited in time, therefore you're limited in income, therefore you're limited in wealth. And the opposite is true as well.
I think that's a really, really important point because so many of us go into, these professions thinking that we are going to be able to, obviously there is a level of comfort and security in doing that, but it's not a good pathway to long-term, becoming a millionaire.
Right, and it's not a hard fix, Carolyn. It's first of all, it's the mindset fix, right? That's the first thing. We change the blueprint. And then the second thing, we give people some tools and some understandings as to how they can leverage themselves. And like, here's a good example. You are leveraging yourself right now. Does every doctor do what you're doing? No, not like 1/100% don't even do it, right? So you are leveraging yourself, not just you have your practice, and then you have what you're doing here, and I'm sure you have some other elements as well. And so literally, you're reaching thousands of people at once at this point in time. And then I'm not sure what the financial outcome is. That'll be something for you to determine. However,
Well, I'm not a millionaire yet, Harv, and that's my goal.
Well, I have the perfect program for you.
Well, believe it or not, I've already signed up for your 3-day intensive. I just love your approach because it fits with what I do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the exact same thing that I teach, and my goal is to be able to teach that in terms of people's weight and their addictions all over the world. So it's the same kind of concept.
It's identical. There's no difference. We could take the same course and plug in weight instead of money, or plug in relationships instead of money, and the same outcome would occur because we're only all doing the same thing. And I cannot stress to your listeners enough that you can learn everything you want about real estate and about stocks and about financial instruments and about business and all that, and none of it is going to make a massive change until you actually go in and change that financial thermostat so that you're automatically set for a high level of success in whatever skill and methodology you do learn and develop. So, for example, if you have a person who is, let's say, from the time they were young, they learned how to play piano. Okay, they're excellent at it. They took lessons at 2 years old, and but you know what? For some reason, because and let's get into psychology here, their brother was also a piano player, and they didn't like the competition. They hated the practice. They hated performing. They hated the whole thing about piano. They just want to be a dancer. Why? Unconsciously, because they don't want to be competing with their brother. Okay, they just didn't like that whole energy thing. So they were doing it, and they had the skill, and they were practicing. But did they become the concert pianist? No, they didn't. The result never happened. Why? Because unconsciously, they didn't want that result to happen. Okay, there was a reason that they wanted to be out of something else. And it's the same thing with money. Until you are unconsciously aligned with wealth from the inside out, it won't happen outside in. It can't happen. You are the one who has to create it, and you have to do it naturally.
So no matter how many real estate courses you take, or stock courses you take, or
diets you take.
Yeah, what's that?
Or diets you take.
Or diets you go on.
Yeah. This is your financial diet. What's the difference? I love how people are saying to everyone, manage your money like this. Don't get into debt. What are you kidding me? What is this person, like 1 year old? They're going to do what they've always done. It's a habit. Right. Okay, these people aren't. How many times are you going to tell them, manage your money? How many times are you going to tell them, don't spend more than you earn? How many times are you say, cut up your credit cards? What? Does that work? If it worked, why would 92% of people be broke?
Yeah,
it doesn't work at all.
My guest today is T. Harv Eker, and he's the author of Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. So before we went to break, Harv, we were talking about, all of the beliefs that can influence us and how we deal with our money. But once you become aware of those things, once you understand your money blueprint, as you call it, what's next? How do people actually make more money?
Well, how do they make money? That's a really good question. People ask me that all the time. Harv, how do I make money? How do I make a lot more money? Well, the first thing is that, and this is critical because I think most people have no clue. They just want money. They just don't know how to get a lot of it, right? And so, the first thing is that, first of all, as you said, you've got to get that money blueprint revised, changed. The inner program has got to be changed so that it's natural for you to be in alignment with having a lot more money. That's the big thing. The second thing, though, is to understand money. And Carolyn, most people just don't understand. They go, how do I make a lot more money? Well, the first thing is you don't make money. The only people who make money, they work at the mint. The rest of us have to what? We have to earn money. So a better question is, how do I earn money or a lot more money? Okay, the definition of an entrepreneur or a person in business or even a person in a job is, and if you have a pencil and you're not driving, write this down, a person who solves problems for people at a profit or for pay. A person who solves problems for people at a profit or for pay. So what are you? You are a problem solver. Carolyn, the number one reason people will give you money is because you are solving a problem, a big problem or a little problem, a major problem or a convenience problem. Some type of problem for them to give you money to solve it, right? It's the only reason somebody would do it. I'm standing in front of a bunch of palm trees right now. Somebody is cutting them, and why are they cutting them? Because someone's paying them to cut them. Why? Because those palm trees could be dangerous. The leaves could hit somebody, and so the hotel says, you got to cut those down. That's a problem, right? So no matter what you're doing, if you want to exchange money, you've got to solve a problem for people. So now the question becomes, what problem can you solve for people, and are you solving for them? And the problem with most people, Carolyn, is they have not identified and solidified what problem it is they're solving for people. So if you know what problem it is that you're solving for people, specifically the real problem you're solving for them, then there's just a question of going out and solving it. Now, if your product or service or whatever you're doing to solve that problem really works, and that's another key, Carolyn, what you do has to really work, and you've got to be good at it. You've got to be good at solving the problem for people. No, hokey stuff here. No BS, no trinkets. You got to, if you say you're going to solve this problem, solve the problem, okay? So you got to be good at what you do to solve that problem. Then the question is, how do I so you get paid for solving a problem for people. Great. So that's how you earn money. Now the question is, how do I earn a lot of money? Now there's an easy answer, isn't it? Solve that problem for a lot of people. So the only people that actually give you money, the only things that give you money is people. Dogs don't give you money. Elephants don't give you money. God doesn't give you money. Trees don't give you money. People give you money. That's the only thing that exchanges money. It's a representation. And so now if you want to make a lot of money, you got to solve that problem for a lot of people. So now it's a question of, how do I create a reality, a system, a methodology to leverage myself so that I can solve that problem for a lot more people? And the result of that is creating a lot of money. So it's very simple. Either you solve a lot of problems for a few people, or you solve one problem for a lot of people. But it all gets based in solving a specific problem for people. And right away, that narrows down 90% of the people today have no clue of what they actually do for people, what problem they solve for people. They cannot identify it. They cannot elicit it. They cannot express it. And so people don't even know that they even do that and how they do it and why they're different.
But I'm assuming, though, Harv, that not everybody who comes to your workshops actually wants to be a millionaire. Are there other problems that you're solving for people?
Oh, absolutely, because that's a great question, too. First of all, I should say this right now. $1 million today, if one says, I don't even want to be a millionaire, I'd say stay home. Because you know what, $1 million today doesn't barely buy you a decent house. Yeah. I mean, $1 million is very, very, very little right now. And if someone's thought process is that I don't even want to be a millionaire, I just want to do a little better, well, certainly that's a no-brainer for us. But I want to change that. I would want to change that dendrite in that neurological pathway in that person's mind in the first 3 minutes of that course. Because $1 million is not where we're going here. It is
But not everybody who goes to your courses actually becomes a millionaire or a multimillionaire, right? So there must be
probably not, but at least they have the intention to, and at least they're working towards that, and at least with that, there's a saying.
I'm just trying to get at that. I'm going to go back to my analogy because everybody who is overweight wants to lose weight, but not everybody can become a thin ideal. And so in your case, are there other things? Because I know some of the things you talk about in your book are so you and your spouse don't fight about money. And right. I'm sure that would be a result that people would be happy about.
If there's other rewards for being at the program,
right.
et cetera. And the answer is absolutely yes, because you're working on you. And you are the result of all of those things. So the result of the program for most people, I mean, people that relate to me anyways, is they're much happier, period, because they realize how to control their mind and how their mind is taking them out and what to do with their mind when it's not supportive to them, not just in money, but all areas of life. The second thing is you hit it right on the head. Their relationships become the improvement is dramatic. Why? Because the number one reason most people fight is because about money. And the thing that people don't realize is that when you're arguing with somebody about money, you're not arguing with them. your two blueprints are arguing. The two thermostats are arguing, And so you're not even, the two of you aren't even in the picture. It's your blueprints that are arguing. So what we do at the program is we show people that. We have people explain their blueprints to the other person, especially if they come with their spouse or their mate, and then they create a third blueprint, a third thermostat that works for the relationship that they can both buy into. And it's really phenomenal. It's the same as if you became a partner in a business. You have your way of doing things, your partner has their way of doing things, but for the business purposes, you have to get together and say, this is the way we're going to do it for success for in the business. It's the same when your relationship. This is the way we're going to do it as a successful money situation for the relationship that we can both buy into and live with. So we do that.
Are there any other things that people learn at the intensives that you teach?
They learn about, absolutely, again, we reprogram the mind files so that the result is much easier and much more lucrative wealth situation, much happier, much more in control of their thought process in general in their life. And one of the other things that happens for people is they become better parents if they've got children. Why? Because they finally realize that it's not what they say to their kids, but it's who they are as a model to their kids that makes all the difference in the world. And I'm sure you work with that all the time. And so the results of being a lot happier, having a lot stronger relationships, being a better parent, and being way more confident in who you are and how you do things is the result of that program. Confidence is critical because the word confidence comes from the Latin word confidere, which means to trust. And the reason, Carolyn, most people don't do that well is they don't trust themselves. And the program is set up for you to be able to really recognize what is holding you back. What are you saying to yourself? And what belief systems do you have that are holding you back? And we actually wipe those out very, very quickly. And it's quite amazing. You'll say, how could you do that in 3 days? Well, I don't know. If you brought your computer into a computer expert for 3 days, don't you think they could do something with that programming, with that software? That's all we're doing is we're changing the software. Can you do that in 3 days? Of course you can.
Well, this has been a great show, and I'm hoping that all of my listeners will go out and get your book and think about coming to the Millionaire Mind Intensives. Just want to mention the website. They can find out more information. Again, is www.millionairemindglobal.com. And I'm sorry that's all the time we have. But I just want to thank you, Harv, for being on the show. You've been a great guest, and I think people have learned a lot. And I also want to thank my listeners to The Vital Life, Awakening Your Full Potential. Check us out on iTunes for podcasts of previous shows. And then next week, we're going to have a very special guest again, Linda Bacon, who's one of the founders of the Health at Every Size movement and the author of the book of the same name. You got to listen to that show. It's going to be great. So come back with us next week on The Vital Life. Until then, I wish you good health and vitality.
You have been listening to the Dr. Carolyn Coker Ross Show. Please visit CarolynRossMD.com. That's CarolynRossMD.com to access podcasts, show archives, and more about Dr. Ross and her services.